Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is the first and what is sure to be a glitchy live episode of the I'm No Joe podcast. As you can tell, things are a little out of sorts at the moment. Hurt my hand, might have to have surgery on that. Hurt my foot, might have to have surgery on that. Things have just been insane the last couple of weeks. I've got that summertime crud creeping in through my chest. Most of the other gentlemen that are usually on the show have something else going on today. They've had something else going on the last couple of days. Everybody's schedule is crazy right now, so while the early prelims are starting right now, I did want to try and get a little quick live episode in here to just talk about a couple of the fights, because there are a lot of filler fights on this particular card, but we also have some very significant, some very important fights that do deserve a quick second mention, and obviously without having the time to do a normal episode, edit it, and render it and all that good stuff before the fights go on, we're barely going to get this off before the actual prelims kick off. But you know what? Better late than never. We've been late more than once before. It won't be the first time. I'm sure it won't be the last. But you know what? There's a couple fights that I do want to break down. So we're not even going to do a news and recent events in this episode here. We're just strictly talking about UFC 237. It's live right now. So we are going to jump right into the top of the stack. We're going to start completely by skipping the early prelims, because those are underway and there's not really a whole lot of important fights on the early prelims. So we're going to dive right into the actual prelims, and they're starting with a fight of epic proportions. We're talking about the legend BJ Penn versus the hair Clay Guida. This is going to be an interesting matchup because neither one of these gentlemen are anywhere near their prime. But everyone thought after BJ Penn's last match that did not look spectacular that he was going to retire. He did not. So here we are with what I believe might be a better matchup for him than his last fight. Clay Guida is by no means over the hill, but boy is he sitting right on that crested tippy top, ready to start downsliding. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. From there, we're going to jump to the closing fight, the premier fight of the prelims. One, Antonio Rogero Nogueira versus Ryan Superman Spann. Now, this is another one of those fights where I get that he's a Brazilian and we're fighting in Brazil, but Minotauro should have retired years ago. So what I'm hoping is that this is going to be his fight. Ryan Spann isn't a soup can by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not top tier yet. So my thoughts are the UFC is throwing Minotauro a bone here in his home so that he can come out, hopefully get a victory, lay his gloves down at home, stop taking punches to the head. He clearly is done. On the other hand, you never know, man. He's hard-headed, clearly. He's still fighting, still trying to do the damn thing, which, you know, A for effort. I know that your heart's in it, clearly, but there's a time in every fighter's life when you just have to stop. So I think that might be this time for Minotauro. Hopefully he beats Ryan Spann, he gets his victory, he lays his gloves down. We call that good. From there, moving on to the main card. According to the UFC's website, I believe it was still on the play card that was circulated around Instagram through the UFC and Dana White earlier today, but according to the UFC's website that I'm looking at right now, the Francisco Trinaldo versus Carlo Diego Ferreira fight has been canceled. I don't know why. I will look more into that, obviously, here in just a minute when we finish the show. But moving on from there, one of the other non-title interesting ladies fights that we have going on this evening, Irene Aldana versus Bethe Correia. Now, props to Aldana for keeping this fight on. Bethe Correia missed weight by 6 pounds. This is not the first time that Bethe Correia has missed weight. And it's not the first time she's missed weight by a large margin like this. I think Aldana takes this one. I think even though Correia comes in overweight, I I think she is on the very hard downward slope here. I think Aldana takes this one. After that, another Brazilian that we get is fighting in Brazil. Thiago Alves versus Laureano Staropoli. This is going to be an interesting match because Staropoli is still young to the UFC, but Thiago Alves is another one of those Brazilians that you can tell that they're bringing out because they're in Brazil. He is far beyond his prime. He cannot stay consistent. He cannot keep a win streak. He, to be fair, hasn't stayed on much of a losing streak. He always catches a break here and there, but man, we have seen time and time again how much Thiago Alves is better as a coach than he is a fighter. So maybe, just maybe, fingers crossed, we get another one where Alves gets the win here against Staropoli. He's a young fighter. It won't, deter his career too much. Alves gets to lay his gloves down. Fingers crossed. So from there, we move on to the co-main event. One, Jose, the King of Rio Aldo, versus Alexander Volkanovski. This is going to be a crazy striking match here. Volkanovski hits hard. Aldo seems to think that if he can get around Volkanovski, he gets another shot at Max again. Completely ignoring the fact that Frankie Edgar is pretty much top of the stack right now and rumored to be getting the next shot at the belt once Max is all healed up again. Who knows? But Jose at home, again, not a 5-round fight, so we've seen him looking really good in the 3-rounders lately. If he gets around Volkanovski, he might be up at the top of the list again for a title shot, but I still, in my opinion, Frankie gets the next crack at taking the belt from Max. I think that's only fair. But what does fair mean in the UFC these days, really? Because look at what they're doing with 155 now that Tony Ferguson is back, and they're going to make the matchup with Cowboy, supposedly, even though it was supposed to be Cowboy versus Conor, and Tony was going to be taking on someone else because he's been out and has major injuries to recover from and still hasn't shown that he's back to championship potential yet, in my opinion, but that's for another time. Moving on to the actual co-main event here. Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier versus Anderson the Spider Silva. Now, originally, Anderson said that he wanted this fight to be either Nick Diaz or Conor McGregor, because he was going to retire after this fight. When the UFC announced that they gave him Jared Cannonier, he accepted the fight, but he hasn't made any comments as to whether he's going to still be retiring after this fight is over or not. That being said, this is a weird matchup. Anderson, if you watch the training videos, he's still good, but you can tell that Adesanya took a little piece of his soul with him when he beat him. And then you look on the other side of the octagon here, and you've got Cannonier, who started as a full-on heavyweight and is now all the way down to fighting at 185. He's maintaining a good amount of power as he's coming down, but his technique is not what you would call Anderson Silva level yet, in my opinion. So I think this is a very strange matchup. I think Cannonier can absolutely hurt Anderson if he catches him. But at the same time, I think Cannonier is still, I don't want to say clumsy, but not graceful enough to be able to actually, dance with Anderson right now. It's tough to call. If they can keep it on the feet, I think Cannonier can outstrike power-wise with Silva. But if it goes to the ground, the Spider's going to wrap him up. Either way, honestly, I hope the Spider puts his gloves down in the center of the ring once this one's over, because you don't want to see the Spider get damaged much more than he already has. And this fight, with the power that Cannonier carries, has potential to give him some serious ouches. But scoot along from that one real quick. And that will bring us to the main event of the evening. The one, the only, Thug Rose Namajunas going into enemy territory, going down to Brazil to defend her belt as the strawweight queen reigning undefeated against Jessica Andrade in Brazil. This is going to be an amazing, amazing fight. And this is one of those that you have to be careful about because your MMA math instinct wants to kick in right away. Andrade fought against Joanna and lost. Joanna got beat not once, but twice by Rose. So by MMA math, Rose should be able to just walk in the park right through Andrade. But that's not how the real world works, and we understand that. What I think it's going to come down to is, can Rose stay out of power punching range from Andrade while putting her own jiu-jitsu and her own striking into play from range? Because that's where she's the best. Step off, pop, step out, kick, things like that. Grappling, I don't think is going to go so much in Rose's favor here. Andrade is much more of a fucking powerhouse when it comes to the takedowns and the slams, so this one is going to be close. I think overall Rose is going to be able to still outmaneuver Andrade's power. I don't think Andrade is going to make it out of here without getting a couple of good clips in on Rose. I think Rose is definitely going to take a shot or two, but I think Rose beats her. Rose keeps her title. Hashtag and still in enemy territory. I think Rose is just too much at 115 right now. I don't think there's anybody in that division that can take that belt away from her, and I don't care how many times Joanna says she's coming to take the belt back again. I don't think anything would happen different in a third fight with her and Rose than happened in the first two. I think it might actually be worse. And we saw with Max and Aldo, when he's got your number in the first fight, the second fight comes around, it doesn't get better. Same thing, I believe, really with Holloway and Ortega. If Holloway and Ortega fight again, I don't think it's going to go the same way, but I don't think it's going to be very different either. It's just that stylistic matchup we've seen doesn't work the way you think it does. So that's what we've got for right now. We're going to call that all for this particular episode in the live session that I am sure has been glitchy and skippy as shit, and I apologize in advance for that. But that's what we're going to call all for this live episode. Thank you again for tuning in. Remember, if I made you laugh throughout this, give me a thumbs up. If you agree with anything I said, consider subscribing. If you think that every word that has come out of my mouth is going to be right the fuck on as this evening unfolds, consider giving this episode or any of the other episodes of the show a share. We're trying to grow the show. But on the other hand, if you think that I'm just a dumb, injured idiot sitting in front of a webcam talking out his ass, give me a thumbs down. Clearly I deserved it. But that's what we're going to call all for this evening. So remember, you can root for anything. Don't let ignorance stop you.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with expert timing. There were funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown. They were chopping them up, they were chopping them down. It's an ancient Chinese art, and everybody knew their part. From a fainting to a slip, and a kicking from the hip. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with expert time.